A very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to today's edition of The Agenda. My name is Toiwanjabela, your host. Tonight we are closing of the year. It is the last edition of the year for The Agenda, and to help us reflect on the year that was is Jemima Beukes. She is a senior journalist here at Namibian Sun, as well as Shinovene Immanuel, also a senior journalist at the Namibian. We are here to reflect on the biggest news items of the year and just give you a bit of reflection on that. Comrades, thank you for making time.
Thank you for dragging us in here.
Yeah, sure.
Lucky to have us.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have you guys. There's no question about it. Yeah, I think the first thing that I want us to tackle is the oldest of all the stories, which is Fishrot, really. I think the expectation this year was that, prior to this year, all the expectations were that somehow the trial ought to be starting sometime this year. Not a single stride has been made towards that. What we've seen is bail applications and challenging the removal of, or for the removal of some judges and whatnot, which in that case is exactly what delayed the start of the trial. But, what progress has actually been made this year?
With regards to the trial, Toivo, thank you for giving me the floor, the green floor. With regards to the trial, yeah, very little progress has been made. And yes, I think that is also, this all, once again, puts the focus on the sad tale of the Namibia's justice system, that the arm of justice is very long. It takes very long for cases to actually get to trial. And oftentimes, people who may not be guilty are tortured in these cells or in incarceration. I'm not saying the Fishrot are not guilty. I'm also not saying they are, but that has been the plea. I mean, these people, you have to also, I mean, if they are not guilty, then it's unfair to hold them there just because the ACC, the Justice Ministry cannot gather enough or cannot put effort in making sure that evidence is available to actually point to these people being guilty, because that is the concern right now, that they are dragging their feet to gather the evidence. They are dragging the feet around dealing with these issues. I mean, even the extradition of the whistleblower, what is his name, Jonathan Stephenson, even that, there's going back and forth. You don't know whether the man is coming, whether the man is doing it virtually. So there's very little detail on where exactly the state is when it comes to the progress towards the trial.
Yeah. Shinovene, I think do you think the fact that Gustavo is back in jail now, because the fear has always been that if these guys were out, they will play games, bringing little applications, attacking this provision of the law and whatnot in order to avoid the main trial going ahead. But now with everybody back in jail, do you think on their part there will be that sense of agency now?
I don't think they will to change any of their strategy. But generally, I think compared to maybe this perception that it's the state's fault, I think it's probably they're probably to blame, because often they pick out certain aspects of the case, different cases, and that delays the whole case. Yeah. I know for sure, I think probably the state is probably ready in terms of this case. In fact, they've already decided who should be charged, with what should be charged, what are the key areas, who are the witnesses. I think they have over 100 witnesses. I think Martha Himalwa has probably done her part. And it's an old norm in most of these big cases where the suspects will try and use certain issues to delay the case. I think we had Mike Nipunya challenging the issue, going to the Supreme Court, Gustavo asking for the judge to be recused. And I think in my limited understanding, all those have an effect to the main trial. So ideally, and hopefully, the trial hopefully starts next year, but this year only we have seen progress here and there. I think the decision to the decision to take back Gustavo is quite a huge one, and I'm sure the state will use that as the reason to defend or justify why the suspects are still in jail. But I think you have seen even over these weeks, even during Esau's bail hearing, new details are coming out, and the state will use that to even strengthen their case. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, we've seen pronouncements, because what they've been trying to do now is to say, look, in fact, the argument that Shinovene is making to say that the state seemed to have wrapped up release investigation, because I've heard pockets of prosecution people saying, look, from our part, we are done. We are ready now to go to trial, but because of these side challenges, Mike Ngiponya saying, interest of justice, that provision must be challenged and scrapped from the law book. Doesn't make sense. But we have seen President Hage Geingob saying at the Swapo Congress recently that they have been in jail for too long. What was your impression of the president making that remark, especially in the context of the separation of powers?
I think the president is made, he's become popular for making these very irresponsible statements. A few years ago, he said the Constitution is but a paper, I think, or something like that.
Piece of paper, yes.
They're undermining the Constitution, essentially. And now saying this, as a sitting president, you are also undermining the justice system, the very justice system that you should uphold as the country's president, because at the end of the day, that is the backbone of your governance, because we are a country that is governed by the rule of law. And if you question the rule of law, where are we left? What is also said, which is terribly disturbing, is that there should be a review of the justice system suddenly, because these are Swapo cabinet ministers. You wonder, does it mean that you are going to bend the law because it's people close to you, people that are affiliated to you? And also it raises concern given the fact that fingers have been pointed to the president with regards to the Fishrot, and even to Swapo that is believed to have, that is implicated in this Fishrot. You wonder, is the Swapo government going to pull the strings? Undo the justice system to accommodate them and their comrades? This is very disturbing, and I don't think Namibians should sit back when these kind of statements are made, because it can be the very last thing between us and chaos.
Shino, the president and the Congress also spoke about that there are potentially more people to be arrested in connection with Fishrot. I don't know who he was referring to and what he meant, but what did you make? What was he talking about?
I think just in addition to her comments about reckless comments by the president, I mean, the president normally is, I always think personally that he's a Democrat who believes in the rule of law. So we really put the bar high for him in terms of public comments and understanding state institutions and systems that he always refers to. But I think also in addition to that is that I think he is trying to play to the gallery at the Congress. Because remember, Fishrot is a huge issue in the party at the moment. There are those in the party who probably feel that the president has sold out the group of the Saki, the James Atukulupi and others, because remember they were part of the Swapo machinery for years. So that group feels like this president has sold out the boys. They call them the boys in their lingo, to say they sold out the boys, and there should be a way to bring these boys back into the fold. So in a way, because that was part of the issue around the campaigns. There's one group that are saying, okay, you must just be careful if this group wins, the Fishrot boys will be out. And I think Fishrot will be a key issue running into maybe starting from 2025. You will see whether the case will all of a sudden start dragging, whether Martha Ulimala will still remain there. All those things the public should have a look out for, because it's just power at play. And the president always try and balance that. First he says, look, the justice system is very slow. He's trying to please that group. of the ones that feel that he's aligning them, and then he says, actually, by the way, there will be more arrests. Trying to balance, you say, actually, we are doing everything we can to respect the law, but obviously, there are those who need to be pleased as well.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out for me, Jemima, is that I think in 2018 when President Gengob wrote letters to several ministers saying that they have been accused of corruption and that they must explain themselves. And I think there were specific references that he made to say, you are accused of corruption in this regard. And minister said it was not just general request for them to respond to general accusations. And one of those ministers ended up in jail. That is Sagi Shangala. Others are still roaming the streets. And I'm wondering, does the president, do you ask for permission or not permission, but do you ask for, do you reshuffle people around because they're eating there too much, you remove them and put them elsewhere so that they don't have the chance of eating, or do you actually remove them and put credible people in the system?
So that is exactly the question that is the main question, actually, following Congress and the election of the Central Committee and that of the Politburo. We've seen someone like Katrina Hanse-Himarwa, who's actually a convicted. Yes, she's convicted. Let me not use power words. Let me not swear. Someone like her, for instance, who is put at the party's. It's basically at the party's heart. Or is it the party? Which one is more powerful, the brain or the heart? But it put at such a powerful entity of the party. That raises serious concerns. So you are talking about corruption on one hand, yet you have someone who has violated every part of the law, and you are putting them exactly where they should not be. Those are serious concerns, and the Swapo party, in fact, the president has not been seen walking the talk. He keeps talking about like he's done that. He is only seen as paying lip service. So even Saki is, I think, perhaps even the only minister that was who was taken to task, held accountable for what has happened, but also not by the president. There are other ministers who are still in their positions. In fact, they were just shuffled. So you are taking the one rotten apple from here and you are putting them somewhere else, and you are just taking the rot. You are just rotating the rot, and that is something that Swapo should really do reintrospection about very seriously, because they don't seem to take themselves very seriously when it comes to being accountable to the people, and right in front of the people's eyes. They are pulling these stunts that they are pulling with keeping ministers in the rotten ministers or so-called rotten ministers. I mean, if the president calls you to order and highlights certain issues and shuffles you because of something, then obviously there's an issue. I will not shuffle someone if if there's not any cause of concern. So there are serious concerns, and the president doesn't seem to make any credible effort to address these.
Yeah. So, what Jemima is talking about is also what I wanted to put to you, and that is the issue of 2019. Your minister gets convicted of corruption. You check her out of your cabinet. 3 years later, among so many people the pool of credible people, perhaps, there are not many credible people maybe, but I'm sure there are. And then you pick her out of those and put her in the Politburo. I mean, which is which now? Are you concerned like you were in 2019, or are you actually having confidence in the same person?
Yeah, I think just as an overall observation about the president is, I think he has his own favorite children. Basically, in the Namibian house, he has his favorite children. These ones, they get a pass. Even if they make a mistake, they still get. And you have the Katrinas. You have a guy like Kanjode. Saki was a favorite, but he totally messed up. But you can see that even Kanjode now, he's still around. In fact, he's in the US, where he's preaching about the oil and all these oil discoveries and gas, green hydrogen and stuff, to an extent that he often breaks his own rules for those favorite people. First, like Katrina, for instance, I think with Katrina, the reason he appointed her is probably Gengop is has lost a lot of political currency. He needs people who can go to battle with him in, in bodies like a Politburo. Because I know Katrina will literally fight for Geingob even probably when he's wrong. So that's where he probably tried to balance. Cesar is somebody he can rely on to make sure that even if there are issues regarding interpretation of the constitution, Cesar will be there. And previously he had Kawana to do that. So the president often tries to, he sells this thing of his, is a person who respects institutions, but often at his political, when his political currency is at stake, he will literally turn the other way so that he can survive. And this is what I think, I don't know, we might have to talk about the issue of the two centers of power, but even in that case, it's a classic example of Geingob, because all of a sudden in the top 4, the 3 are not his people. He will literally be isolated in the top 4, and in some cases the CC. He needs a lot of people who will like, I think Malema said, killed for him.
Yeah, we'll address the two centers of power later, but before we go for a break, Jemima, one of the arguments was, which I found very flimsy anyways, is that supposedly that Katrina was appointed to the Politburo to sort of represent the South, but is she the only person in the South? You are from the South yourself, then
profiling you.
So there ought to be more many credible people in the South who are cadres, proper cadres of Swapo.
No, there are absolutely more credible people from the South that are in the party right now that are more credible. Katrina was not quite in the party. Because she's very aligned to the president, she's seen as influential, like Shinovene has pointed out, and because of that, she has this influence in the party. So she can be seen as influential in the South, but in the party structures. But outside, when it comes to bringing him votes during the elections, unfortunately he is sitting the pot completely missed, because the people in the South are really not fond of Katrina, because she's the matter in which she was convicted, the mass housing scandal, was against the people of the South. So she's alienated herself during this this mass housing scandal. She's alienated herself. People felt that she was trampling on the people of the South. So Katrina is really not the strongest contender in the South, especially if you are thinking that you want someone as a foot soldier that will bring you votes. Yes, she is in the party. In the party, she's still seen as powerful because I think for some of them, the slate mentality is still there. They still want to keep that system. But unfortunately, as much as she's loyal to Hage, I don't quite see how she's going to bring him a lot of support, because a lot of people from the South that are in the party are actually aligning with Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah. People like your Lucia Witbooi, people like Maureen Hinda, who's very influential in Kietman's areas, and that says people who have spoken out about the genocide, those people are aligned with Netumbo. And unfortunately, I think the time for Katrina and the people around her are far gone.
Yeah. I thought I would go on a break quickly, but I need to put just a quick question to you, Shinovene, because another argument is obviously to say that Katrina was convicted, she lost her ministerial position, she is starting over again, and that natural justice has been served, that she has paid her dues, that justice has prevailed, and that she deserves a second chance. What do you say to that?
It's one of those. In today's editorial, we indicated that it's a fair argument in some cases. When you can't be, nobody is guilty for the rest of your life. People make mistakes, and we all make those. But I think one of the key points is, if you accept that you have made a mistake, and you say, look, I made a mistake, and I would like another chance. For me, I think that she has not even accepted that she made a mistake. In fact, she says, look, I think she was quoted these days in one of the newspapers that the people who benefited from the corruption actually are happy and they got houses. So in the first place, that is that is lack of remorse, and that she showed it during the court case. So that is literally one of the key areas of gauging whether the person should get another chance. So it just doesn't make sense. But I think it also ties largely on what she said. The South, all of it, the two regions were mostly Ndaitwa. And I guess the president probably found it very difficult to get a lot of options because remember, Gengop never supported the Ndaitwa faction. Even now he's basically, they are head on at each other, but that maybe made the little choices available for her to appoint. But I think Gengop just he could have probably planned it better from the CC, putting in somebody from the South who has the capacity in the CC, and then using that person, like he did with Namanje. He deliberately appointed Namanje in the CC, but because he has so much trust in him, he puts him in the Politburo. So,
wonderful. We go for a quick break and return.
Africa Good Morning is a current affairs program that brings you the latest from Southern Africa and beyond. News, economics, sport, weather, interviews, and so much more. For any advertising or news-related queries, contact AGM at synergy.com.na. Africa Good Morning, bringing Africa to you.
The show continues with my colleagues Jemima and Shinovene. Let's talk about the Congress itself now, because this has not been a very friendly Congress in terms of its outcome towards the president. The question that I've been asking prior to Congress was to say, what if Netumbo and Safia Shaningwa emerged out of this Congress? How are they going to work with the president that clearly did not support their cause for re-election? But now there's talks of, there are remarks that he made, talking about an extraordinary Congress. Now they rebuffed the remarks, because I sent Alfredo Hengari the exact video clip of the president saying, congratulations, now we just wait for an extraordinary Congress before 2024 to formally, if they will, endorse you and take over my position, which has never been the understanding at all. In 2012, when Hage Geingob won the vice presidency of Swapo, he was endorsed there and then as the party's candidate for 2014. Why must there be a Congress this time around? Extraordinary.
I think I was speaking to some people even just before the results were announced, even after, and I was questioning to say, because now the question was that if they have an extraordinary Congress, let's say in 2025 or 2024, that and Geingob steps down in 2024, because remember there was a Politburo and the CC that allowed Geingob to stand unopposed, because that's what he told, ideally that was the message that he gave them, say, guys, let me go unopposed, and then by 2024 I can step down, so we align the presidency of the party and the presidency of the state if they are in charge. But now I think the last meeting, even the people I was speaking to around just a week or a few days after Congress, I said, will this still happen? They said, of course, the president will step down. But I think the meetings that led after the Congress, the several meetings, Geingob has felt that actually either I'm in a weak position, that I might even, to an extent that I might even be banished or something, because I think he has that fear that he was, and generally that has been the case with him. He feels that he has been mistreated by some of the party leadership. They felt like he's an outsider. He didn't get as other leaders got. In fact, the top northern regions actually didn't support him, and technically he is right on that, because a lot of them just felt like he's not from the north, so we don't support him. But all those little things, I think, made him actually think twice. Yeah. But actually, if you see the reports, in the media reports we did today, is on Friday, is that the people in the Ndaitwa camp and mostly in the Daitwa camp, because they are the ones now that initially thought they could have this power. They are more playing it quietly. Nkongo, we spoke to Nkongo, he says, look, let's tackle that next year. We'll deal with the issue of the 2 centers of power next year. But you must understand that the Daitwa group is very strategic. I think we probably didn't give them the credit they are, but it's because, I think personally, it's because of the generals. They are more strategic in their aims. So they won't go like other camps will already go after the president saying, oh, that is right. They will say, okay, step back. What options do we have? If it means hunking down and waiting until the president goes in 2027, then so be it, kind of thing. So, but it's quite a huge story, I think, for the president to try and shift the goalpost.
Yeah. Namibia has tasted a little bit of 2 centers of power, I think, between 2005 and 2007. It was very brief, in fairness, because President Pohamba became head of state in 2005, and the Swapo Congress was only going to take place in 2007, at which Sam Nujoma then gave up that position after 47 years or so. But we haven't seen a full manifestation of the effect of 2 centers of power. What are your fears or confidence in having a scenario like that now that Geingob says he will serve his full term as party president?
First of all, I think it's worrying that the president doesn't have comprehension for the fact that he keeps exposing himself the whole time. Number one, I want to go back to the Swapo Congress and when he announced the the extraordinary Congress that now he is going to, and that he's also going to extend his term. Before the Congress took off or started, he seemed to be very confident that a certain group of people would win, would be victorious during the Congress. And at that time, he was also very pertinent saying that he will indeed step down. This is contrary to the fact that when he says he wants the party to be united and that he's going with the specific, that he's going with whomever is going to win. Because if he was definitely going with whomever was going to win, he was not going to call for an extraordinary Congress at the very last minute when Netumbo and Sophia emerged as the winners. So this already exposes the fact that he certainly had a certain group of people in mind to come out. And it is really concerning and disturbing that 1 center of power was his slogan. It was something that he invented when he introduced his so-called, I don't want to say controversial, but his so-called slate, his people. And he went to town to justify where there should be 1 center of power, that there cannot be 2 centers of powers because it will not be good for the country's governance, it will create chaos. And he was very serious about it creating chaos, instability, destabilize the country. So for the man who hails himself as one of the founders of the country's constitution, and also someone who keeps reminding us that we need to guard and protect the peace that we have and the stability that we have, it is deeply concerning that he's suddenly going to run while there's another person, and he's opening this country up to what he said will create chaos, 2 centers of power. And that is very worrying. And I wonder if the president even realizes, because there are times that you wonder if the president takes a look inside before he makes these decisions. So yeah, it is very concerning.
Yeah. What is the ideal situation, Shinovene?
I think politics. No, there is that those who push for the 2 center of power. There is legitimate, checks and balance and making sure that there is no one way of thinking. But I think for this case, it could tend really dirty. Why? I think the years you referred to with Pohamba and Nujoma, you should remember that Pohamba was anointed by Nujoma. So it's literally a good working relationship. It's like Pohamba back then was Pohamba working with Geingob, because those two, the other one endorsed the other one. In this case, Geingob has failed to at least make 3 or 4 key rules that means a 2 center of power relationship. First of all, these two only worked I think from 2017. So what will happen is the 2 center of power will be where Gengop is doing his own thing there. In fact, when Ndaitwa and Shaningwa are trying to do that, which they have the mandate now to run the party, where they're trying to either enforce changes or change the dynamics of the country in terms of, like right now, the president has been pushing the mantra of green hydrogen and oil. What if Ndaitwa actually thinks, local businesses first, or SMEs, and then the president will probably be, I don't think he might not accept it. You see, so what is likely to happen is those two, I don't think their relationship has been broken. I know I had spoken to people close to the president and close to the Ndaitwa, and they were like, they literally not on good speaking terms, and that will not change in the space of few weeks. So what could help, I think, is for the president to ideally say, look, let's have a transition. I do not support, and I agree with Pendukeni for her to say, look, we do not want this thing of handing over power like you are handing over sweets to the next person. It shouldn't be. That's why Gengop should not have gotten the power that he got in 2015. It should be at an extraordinary Congress where a Congress is held to formally, even because extraordinary is from the people who were at this one. So they can go back and say, okay, the president has decided to step down in 2025. We would like to have whoever is going to be for the presidency. And in that case, you will find there might be chance takers who will try and still challenge Ndaitwa probably from the presidency. My suspicion is if let's say, if Ndaitwa goes up, Shaningwa will want to be a secretary, the vice president, because that's what her initial thought back then, before Gengop decided he wants to stay on. Shaningwa has always wanted to be the vice president, but then they were told, okay, the president is staying on, so how about if you stay where you are? And this is how they work together, the two. So what is likely to happen now, it's a bit complex, it's probably speculative, but if the position is then opened up, the president position is opened up in 2025, Ndaitwa will move up. Who will move to the vice presidency? That I'm not sure, but I can bet Shaningwa will want to move up, and then they'll probably want to have their own person there, Secretary General. Then by 2025 or 2024, they can sell to the electorate that this is how we want to do things, this is our plans, this is the party's mandate that we have, and then Ndaitwa will sell that party mandate. Otherwise, what will happen is we'll go into the 2024 elections. Gengop is in the background, but actually the campaign message and everything could literally just be dictated by the outgoing government, which I don't think the voters will buy into those things, because they might want something new, something fresh.
Yeah, we have seen Jemima in South Africa, for example, and the ANC and Swapo are so close in their thinking and their history and everything, and we saw when they had their own two centers of power spell, Mbeki lost in Polokwane, and Zuma became party president, Mbeki's state president, and Zuma undermined Mbeki so much to the extent that he actually led the purge that ended up with Mbeki being recalled. And we see now, even currently, as the ANC conference kicks off, that President Ramaphosa, who is the president of both the country and the party, continues to be undermined by Zuma. Imagine if Zuma was party president by any chance. It would have been chaotic. Do you therefore think that it's better to have the powers, again, like Shino is saying, it's very, very difficult, because sometimes it depends on the personalities and the circumstances. Your guy who endorsed you remains as the president, the party president. You go to the state, you still have a good relationship. Maybe there are good intentions. There are guys who are so hungry for power. They will continue to undermine you and even want to recall you. So in this case, what are your thoughts on what should happen? What is the ideal situation for Netumbo?
I agree with Shinovene that this is not an ideal situation where two centers of power work right now, because it's very clear that Netumbo was not the candidate that the president would want to have endorsed if he was going to endorse someone at the onset of the Congress. And it was also very evident when the announcement was made of the outcome of the Congress that he was not happy with what has transpired, and that itself indicates that he will definitely not sit back with this person in that position and not do anything. And we've seen with when his slate was in charge, how vindictive they were. We've seen the mudslinging of the so-called Harambee faction against the other members of the party. And if this continues, the two centers of power under President Geingob and Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, it is unfortunately, what has happened under the Harambee time will unfortunately play out again. It will not be good for the country, it will not be good for stability, it will not be good for peace, because I think what is at play in the right now is economic and emancipation. It was obviously a buzzword for a very long time, but I think now is the time that people really feel it in their bellies that we want jobs. We don't want jobs, we need jobs. Unemployment has skyrocketed. I think we've actually made the top in terms of inequality, global inequality. People and the youth are not happy. They are up in arms. They are demanding to be heard. They are demanding. And with this scenario, it's not going to be wise to have two groups of people who are already at each other's throats sitting in a position like that. It will be chaos.
Yeah. We go for the last break and return shortly.
NMH at 1 brings you news from all across Namibia. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact NMH1 at synergy.com.na. NMH at 1, your lunchtime news companion.
We continue with the last edition of the show for the year. Let's touch on another big news that dominated headlines in 2022, and that is the issue around Phala Phala. We are told, Shinovene, that people stole money at the private residence of President Ramaphosa. No case was opened with the South African police, but somehow, and Ramaphosa departed the team to Windhoek. They met President Geingob. They were picked up with a Namibian police helicopter from no man's land. And immediately after that, one of the suspects was apprehended. For me, my contention, and I've written extensively about it in my editorials, is that I sense abuse of state resources on the Namibian part, abuse of positions on the Namibian part. What are your thoughts?
That story, I remember when the guy was arrested, was it 2021, 2020?
Yeah, 2021, yes.
Yeah, we had, I remember I think the other colleagues did the general stories of just how, and then I remember I had a chat with my editor, Tangeni, said, Aman, this guy, who is he and why is he being pushed around like this? It's just a positive case anyways. Why is, and then he said, but there is information that he's a wanted man in South Africa for a robbery. In my mind, okay, robbery, but I checked online, I couldn't find anything. But why is it? Then I did a story on just a normal story, spoke to Ndeitunga, and so it gave me some information. It's just that this guy is wanted in South Africa, but it turns out, I think at that point, the police and the Namibian government knew a lot of information, a lot of it, to an extent that it really shows that they were not sincere. The Namibian government were really not sincere in informing the Namibian public just what is happening. In fact, I think they used the excuse of COVID-19 to basically go after people who are wanted in South Africa to please Ramaphosa. I think Geingob there really fell and decided to basically ignore Namibian institutions, the rules of Namibian institutions to please the big brother Ramaphosa in this case.
Yeah. So, Jemima, the narrative of the Namibian presidency in their endless pronouncements on this issue has always been that the man, the suspect, Emmanuel David, violated Namibian immigration laws by coming in the country through an undesignated entry point, and that was the only reason why he was chased around by Namibian police. But this long police intelligence report by Nelius Becker that outlines the Q&As, what the man was being asked, what he was interrogated about, and there was the entire version of him admitting that, yes, we stole money from there, yes, we went to buy cars in the Northwest, we did this. But nowhere in the presidency's narrative does that ever feature. They've been not very honest.
No, they've not been very honest. Also, speaking about the president always preaching about institutions, processes, and systems. And when it comes to the deed, he fails completely. And so yes, perhaps if it is correct that the man did violate the immigration law, that's not how you handle someone who has violated the immigration law. There are procedures in place, and that has clearly not been followed. And also these clandestine operations, it is worrisome. I mean, if especially the president's involvement is a huge red flag, that the president can actually come to this level and be involved at this kind of thing just to protect his counterpart on the other side. So I think Namibians are actually too nonchalant on this when it comes to this matter, because it's a very serious matter. Yeah. And one wonders how many other cases are handled like this that we are not aware of. And I mean, if what is the guy, Archer, if he did not open the Fraser, if he did not open the can of worms, we would still be in the dark. The same with Fishrot. So how many of these things are happening on a daily basis that we don't know about? Because the very systems that need to inform us, the very systems that need to be accountable to us are failing in their duty. Yeah.
South Africans, on their credit, like I tweeted the other day, they have held their president accountable. They might not have gotten the outcome that they wanted through all these impeachment efforts and whatnot, and nomination to retain his position as ANC president, but at least there's some movement. Here at home, no one has asked the question. Apart from us in the media, of course, what we do is we ask questions, we end there. Somebody ought to take it from there and proceed with at the party level and say, Mr. President, can you please take us in confidence and actually tell us what happened? Nothing of the sort has happened. Not in government. Our opposition in parliament, not anyone is saying anything compelling. In South Africa, the opposition would even drag a president or somebody to court. Here, no. People just ask some flimsy questions in parliament, then it ends there. Does that speak to the weaknesses of our institutions, our institutional setup? What is the problem?
Yeah, I think 3-4 weeks ago we had an editorial, but where we said, look, Ramaphosa is literally a dead man walking, and he's still. I think this case doesn't end after Congress, of the ANC Congress. I think they will still be used, but any other mistake, then it just adds and piles up. I don't think they expected him to resign immediately. But back to the question, I think one of the main issues we have with Namibian system is, I don't think they are as strong as they should be. I don't think we have strong institutions or systems that the president tries to sell us as really strong, because it's like in the US, for instance. In the US, they had a really strong foundation of systems that can rebuff a president like a Trump, right? Who can come in and try to change everything, change the culture, change everything, but the system itself withholds that shock. For us, we don't have even those systems. Last time I was here, last year, we had this discussion that the president had one of the few chances to implement an access to information law. It's still at his desk as we speak now. It has been passed, yes, but it has not been passed. It's not true. The Whistleblowers Act is still that. How do we expect even whistleblowers to come up to, to inform the public on issues that are affecting them if they fear either being arrested or losing their jobs or not having any protection to their livelihoods? So you are right to say our systems are not good enough, and it's unfortunate that Gengop had, of all people, Gengop had an opportunity to just move it a notch up. But he still preaches on about the ACC and others. But those are things that was done in either 2004, 2005 during Pohamba and Nyoma's era. It's a missed opportunity that already I know his group and some of these people close to him are concerned that when Gengop leaves, we are really going to be in big trouble in terms of transparency and lack of information, and where generals could be much more involved than now. But the point is, he had close to 10 years to put up mechanisms that will be able to withstand shock things like those. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So, like you said, we can just imagine how many Phala Phala cases are available where just buddies to buddies call each other and help each other using state resources. Spies come in, they interrogate people, you are beaten up, you are in your own country and you are treated like you are in South Africa. So
yeah, it's very, very shocking.
Yeah.
And that is why, I mean, in your case, you've written a lot of pre-Fishrot stories, sort of, giving us clues of what was happening. I don't know whether the leaders didn't comprehend the content of those stories or they knew and just kept quiet, because again, if it wasn't for those Icelandic people who came here and really did some serious investigative work, those ministers would have been in cabinet, even with the knowledge of what they've been doing. What I wonder, Jemima, is our institutions, is it because of the way they are set up? Your ACC, for example, the recommendation for the Director General and his deputy has to be made by the President. And it goes to Parliament, and Parliament obviously is an overwhelming Swapo vote there, and then it goes through. Why should the President even be involved in the appointment of an ACC Director? What is his concern about that?
No, absolutely. It is. It should not be like that. It is wrong, and it is something that the political opposition is really failing to arrest, because even something that goes at the end of the day back to the heart of governance is the electoral commissioners. I mean, these people are also recommended by the Swapo party. So who are they going to serve? Who's their master? Swapo is their master, is it not? The Swapo government is their master. And there's a saying that is very apt, and don't bite the hand that feeds you. And these are things that we continuously overlook. And we are seeing it. I mean, the ACC saying no money, there's no trace that money has gone to the Swapo party, and there's no evidence about these and this. And then someone else actually says, but we have the evidence. It's very concerning. And these are things that the political opposition should be up in arms over, and you wonder why they are failing to do this.
Yeah, because I mean, for me, the commissioners of ECN is one thing, and maybe I'm speculating here, but there was even a case, 2019, I think, where the Cora proceedings were held in camera.
Yes.
Away from public and the media. And for me, it was because the name of the president appeared in those papers. And the judge president is appointed by the president. And we saw Damaseb writing soon afterwards, writing to stakeholders in the law fraternity whether they must now come up with a system where certain cases are, I suppose, controversial cases are held in camera. No, we have already that list of which cases can be held under such circumstances like rape and whatnot. And for me, you can never convince me otherwise, that it's because these guys are trying to appease their appointing authority, who is the president. He's mentioned by Ajovi, and somehow we have to protect him. it was, for me, it was never, ever by default. It must have been by design.
Absolutely by
Yeah,
design.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right to say I think generally we have good institutions, generally.
Yeah.
We have an ACC, it's just we have serious concerns about how they are appointed. I think we should call for the reforms of that, either through a panel that is even publicly interviewed, that, like we did now with the ombudsman. Those are good baby steps. But I think at the moment, as society, we should come to the party ourselves.
Yeah.
There is no way, journalist or Jemima, she's not a magician to immediately sniff from far that there is a Phala Phala story there, or there is money that was allocated to build a hospital in a village, and all of that money has disappeared. It's only through having that culture of having to do good for society, do good for the country, to say, yo, this is whole 30 million or this 100 million gone to one person, and this person has not delivered the project. Let's take them to the newspaper. And once in the newspapers, we push. Then there is a push. There is a civil society organization or whatever to then push for accountability. Or then the ACC has to all of a sudden be pushed to take action. So it's I think we are at that point in Namibia's development phase where we really need a lot of public input. I know I speak to a lot of people just in the background who tell us information. They tell us information and they are risking their jobs, but there are few of those. There are few of them who can even just give you context or pride. Most of them see journalists as enemies, and all of a sudden you don't get to contact the journalist, that kind of thing. So that's why. But also just to point out the other one where we write. Sometimes journalists, we have a lot of information that others don't have, but also because we also are involved in this writing their stories. Like for instance, me, when I write a story about Namibia, I can just look at the figures. You see, 150 million just went to 2-3 people, 4. How is that possible if people are dying in hospitals, they don't have beds, they don't have medicine, and then Kanjose has the audacity to go and still try to claim that he has done nothing wrong. Of course he has abused his power, They came up with this whole scheme of Namibia and a whole scheme of C60 so that they can loot. But in the public eye, he was like, no, Kanjose has not done nothing wrong. In fact, he's rewarded with going into the CC. No, but for us as reporters, we are not going to stop here because Kanjose has gone to the CC. We will keep an eye on him, and it should, ideally, society should do the same thing.
Yeah.
When they see that Kanjose is involved, or whoever, every minister who is involved, they should keep a strong eye. They should help us.
Yeah, absolutely. 2023, journalism is still going to be the hope of many people, hoping that we will continue to bring to them, to the fore, the shenanigans in government, bureaucracies, and everywhere else. Shinovene spoke about what his commitment. What can we expect from Jemima Beukes next year?
My commitment is also to keep my hand on the pulse of what is happening in Swapo, because Swapo remains a big, plays a huge role still in the governance of this country, because they are still the party that is seen as the big party, even though they are clinging to dominance with their fingernails, and also the opposition. It would be interesting to see how it plays out in the coming elections, and even when they start campaigning next year, given that we've already had a taste of when the political opposition stands together at the city of Windhoek. And it's not a beautiful picture to see. It's very disappointing actually to see people bickering when they should in fact stand together to face this one mountain that is Swapo. So these are some interesting things that I will definitely keep my eyes on.
Wonderful. Colleagues, thank you for your time today.
You didn't finish the questions, but thank you.
Yeah, no, in the interest of time, we wanted to address lithium, but I think Minister Toma Lwendo really has some serious reflections to do during this holiday. The issuance of EPLs, the manner in which they are being issued, the manner in which individuals can sell each other EPLs without seemingly any involvement of regulatory authorities, and the shipment of lithium to China, apparently for testing only, but you require 50 tons, 50,000 tons. That can never be correct. The roads are being eroded by trucks, apparently 80 trucks a day from Uis to the port of Walvis Bay. But I don't have enough time now to discuss that. I thought it's something really that has caused a lot of pain to the nation this year. But otherwise, thank you. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and 2023. Let's just thrive.
Let's thrive.
Yeah. That's tonight's show, and we wish all our viewers a Merry Christmas and a prosperous 2023. Thank you for supporting us throughout the year. We'll come back stronger next year.